Hey, everybody. Welcome to tonight's late night happy hour. Brian Kamenetsky, Andy Kamenetsky. It is Thursday.
Yeah.
It is Thursday, and we have a great hour for you. We were able to speak earlier today with Travonne Edwards. You know him from The Athletic, where he covers the NBA. You know him from the BOMM podcast network, BOMM series, family of podcasts with the Count the Dings podcast network. That was butchered. And he works at Wieden Kennedy now. He's had a great year. He is a great guy.
Yes.
And it was a fantastic conversation. So Andy's just going to vamp real quick here while I bring it up.
Yeah, it's really cool. Actually, the first time we've known Travonne just over Twitter, the way you'll sort of get to know people in sort of the circles that we work in. But the pandemic was really the first time we ever spoke with him face to face. And then in like the last, I don't know, 8-ish or so months since we talked to him, which at that time it was revealed that he was one of the people behind the NBA Bubble Life Twitter account that ended up becoming this.
That was a big deal.
His life has changed a lot in a lot of really interesting ways, and we wanted to talk with that about that with him, among other stuff.
All right, so that was well done, Andy. Well executed, and we can bring you that interview right now. Travonne, it's good to see you, man. Thanks so much for coming on. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
And so
a lot has changed since the last time we saw you.
A lot has changed.
You were still living in Arizona. You were still a secret member of NBA Bubble Life. And we actually, I think we talked to you like the day that knowledge dropped, that you were 1/4 of the brain trust behind that. And since then, man, lots going on in your life.
Man, so much, man. I'm extremely blessed, man. Thank God. I was in a car accident after that. I broke my kneecap. And I couldn't walk for a bit, but thank God through rehab and love and support, I'm back walking, back working out and doing what I want to do. But yes, I've made the move to New York City. I'm working for a beautiful company of Wieden Kennedy, still co-founder of Count the Dings, still, covering the NBA for The Athletic, and just truly blessed.
And I will say this, Travonne is we're taping this a little early, not just because you're in New York, but also apparently you have a judgmental bed that doesn't like it when you stay up late, and it shames you for not getting enough sleep.
Absolutely.
So, how does that work?
So I have this Tempur-Pedic bed. Shouts to Mattress Firm. They oversold me. I came in with a different budget, man. My friend Sarah always teases me about like your magic bed. Did you get a good score tonight? You know what I mean? Like, it's super funny, but every time I wake up, it tells you a sleep score, and it gives you like REM sleep, deep sleep, how often did you wake up? Did you snore? It has a pattern of everything. And, my score hasn't been great. I think my highest score out of 100 was 77. And that was one night I decided to go to bed before like 10:30. And it's kind of impossible if you're trying to watch West Coast games and, just total FOMO. If you got friends on the West Coast, your group chat's going off crazy. And since I had this bed, like you lay there, you sink in, it like absorbs your form. It's a remote control that comes with it. I usually hit the 0G, so it lifts up and it like leans back and prevents all this.
0G?
Yeah, it has 0G, and
George Clooney.
But it's so good, man. Like, I swear by it. But when I wake up in the morning and I get the email results, it's just really disheartening because my score is still below 80. I'm trying to get there. I don't know what it's going to take for me to go to bed really early.
This bed is basically, it's the equivalent of every Sunday when you get your screen time report on your iPhone, and it feels so fucking judgmental.
Yes.
Like, it feels like your phone is judging you. Like, if it's been up 6% or whatever.
I think the most disheartening part is like when you feel like you had the best sleep ever, and then you see like you score like a 54, and you're like, dang.
Look, I mean, I don't want to get this to be too personal or whatever, but I feel like also too, like, romantic relationships could be affected by this. But like, look, honey, I gotta be asleep. Whatever we're gonna do tonight's got to be done by 9 because I'm not sacrificing. I'm not sacrificing my score for this.
Yeah, I couldn't answer that, but I would say, for the most part, I mean, if anyone does sleep in that bed, it actually records the second person in the bed. I can add them as a profile. So, you can get that score. And also if somebody's snoring, I have a snore button where it adjusts the head part of it, where it leans them up.
I also feel like it's almost like in the two, like if you ever break up, then you have to remove their profile.
You can remove the profile. There you go. Get your own head.
I mean, I would be screening potential partners. Just like the idea of, look, I've been working really hard to get myself into like the mid 70s and occasional 80.
Right.
You're great. Don't get me wrong, but you're just not a good enough sleeper.
You're messing up my sleep score.
Like, I'm a really light sleeper anyway. Like, I feel like your bed would stress me out to the point where my sleep would get worse. Like just worrying about my grades.
I don't know though. Like I had a really bad lower back pains, and I could never sleep on my back. I would have to turn to a side to make it like at least comfortable. In this bed, I can. It just sinks in, so you're not really dealing with the pressure. So I mean, I don't really welcome anybody into my bed like that. But if you're ever in Brooklyn, New York, and you want to, you go to your local mattress firm and say, hey, I want to try the Tempur-Pedic, $4,000
Get
something
me the
bed.
Travonne.
Give me the Travonne. You know what I mean? Mattress firm, holler at me. Promo. We're doing beds right now.
That's right. Look, there's always advertising space available on the BOMM podcasts. Count the dings. I know how this goes. You got to open up space for anyone, and mattresses are legit.
There you go. Mattresses, bedding companies, whoever. Holler at my guy Ben.
That's awesome. So, okay, we're at the halfway point basically for the NBA. We're heading into, I think, what can be described as a fairly controversial All-Star weekend. We're going to talk a little bit about some of that. But what are some of the storylines at the halfway point that have jumped out at you the most?
Buyouts has been crazy. Those have been the biggest rumors. Nothing really crazy as trade. I mean, the trade stuff, obviously outside of the Harden deal and, the Knicks getting Derrick Rose or something like that. It's a few names that's been mentioned. I mean, teams are really bad and teams are really good. And then there's a lot of surprise teams. Like the Suns are good. The Bulls are good. The Knicks are good. You know what I mean? Like,
are they good? Are they just like, do you think the Knicks are good, or are they just not shitty, which makes them
okay?
Good
I won't
relative?
Add two goods, but I think they're good. I think that they're a playoff team. I think that Tibbs did a culture reset. I think that he's got a team that's buying into what he does. No one's trying to push back on that. And I think he, gets the best out of his team, and that they will stick around. I don't think that they remain in the standings that they're in, but I think a lower Eastern Conference playoff spot is basically there.
Do you think they have the foundation for something legit to build on? Because I mean, this season is, I think, going to be considered one that's kind of weird to gauge because of everything that's gone on and the way, one bad COVID test can lead to a team going a week playing with 8 players. There's a lot of weird stuff that goes into trying to evaluate where a team is. Like when you look at the pieces of the Knicks, do you feel like they've actually got something that they can move forward with?
Yeah, they have no pressure. They have no star. Julius Randle is having an amazing year.
Yeah.
More than deserving of all-star. But no, what I mean is no superstar. So there's no pressure. It's no ideal focus. You got Alec Burks going off. You got Emmanuel Quickly going off. It's any guy's night in this system. Derrick Rose might have some vintage stuff going on. You know what I mean? Like, and shouts to Derrick Rose on his comeback. Like, I mean, people that wrote him off, to hell with them, and Carmelo. You know what I mean? Like, no one should be able to write your story, and you should only be able to write your own story. In this particular situation, like, the Knicks have good problems. They have youth that's figuring it out, and only Tibbs would be able to find a way to, have Ntilikina be able to be serviceable. He's got the bright spots out of him. I mean, most of those guys are playing hard for him, and you got to respect it.
This is the part, though, I think is interesting. Like, the Lakers got to this point where it actually got lucky, I think, a couple times because they made the big play for Carmelo. They made the big play for LaMarcus Aldridge twice. They got 2 pitch meetings with LaMarcus Aldridge. The first one was so bad. And they struck out on those things. And ultimately they were lucky because it kept the chain alive so they could trade
They got
all those
lucky
guys for
that
AD.
Kevin Durant wouldn't give him a meeting.
Yes.
Because they might have sat around on the 1% chance that Durant would say yes and miss out on other things that would have made more immediate sense. Like they really got lucky that he just gave him a mercy no.
Right. And so the Lakers eventually, we know what happens. You get all the draft picks, you trade all the draft picks, and you get Anthony Davis. LeBron shows up, you're good to go. The Knicks are in that dangerous place, I think, though, where you have to decide, what are we? Are we going to grow with what we have? Are we going to start trading a bunch of stuff? Because we think, we're talking Thursday, they're 18-18. We think at 18-18, we're in great shape. And RJ Barrett is looking like he's got potential. And look at Julius and all that. Do you trust their management now, with Leon Rose and with Tibbs, to be able to not do something stupid now that they've gotten to this point?
I don't know if I trust them, but I will say I like what they have. I think Vegas in this situation, it's like being up 500. And do you get greedy or do you walk away from the table? And I think in this situation, they need to walk away from the table and stick with what they have.
Greedy.
But I can see the Knicks.
About me at the table.
Yeah, I can see the Knicks getting greedy, maybe moving Julius Randle, for something. And I don't think that. I think they should just build with what they have. They like playing with each other. They have a few pieces. They're young. What I mean? Even the guys that aren't consistent are still showing here and there that they can add to this team. And go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, like the Obi Toppins of that group, and Kevin Knox still doesn't look like he's any good. And Barrett looks like he's emerging as a pretty legit player, and quickly is a great find. But I do wonder if there's enough there when you get past Rose and Elfrid Payton. He's fine. Mitchell, they need some stuff. They do need some stuff.
Absolutely.
So where do they get it? Do you start trading guys or?
I mean,
or just wait
depending on the axe, I would go get Andre Drummond. But it just depends on what I have to give up. If they're asking for Julius Randle, if they're asking for, quickly, they're asking for Barrett. No thanks. No,
I wouldn't.
If I have to give up maybe, Mitchell Robinson, if I have to give up Theo Pinson, some guys that just, are very like Austin Rivers, I like Austin Rivers.
I would trade Austin Rivers for just about anything.
But I'm just saying, like, Austin Rivers came in with the confidence that the team would be in this position. So shout out to him being predicting the future. But I don't see him as a lifelong Knick. I don't see him as in their future moving forward years to come. Not saying that he's not a good player, but if I got a chance to get a guy like Andre Drummond, who isn't like cream of the crop, but he makes them better immediately.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
it puts him in a respectable spot, I would say.
Yeah, and it does though get into that weird, or not even weird question, but just the real question of, if you trade for Andre Drummond, are you committed to re-signing him? Because that doesn't mean, if the answer is no, it doesn't necessarily mean
I think
trade.
you do. I think you do after you make that trade.
It depends on what you give up. I mean, it depends on who you include.
They've got some draft equity. They got some picks from Dallas. They've got the Marcus Morris stuff from the Clippers. They've got some things.
Like if you could find that sweet spot of we don't mortgage too much of the future while basically ensuring we get into the playoffs. So guys like Randall and Barrett and Quickly and whoever we consider part of that core moving forward, they get a taste of this. And we can even see how they respond to it, because it might help us figure out, okay, who do we really see as a long-term part of this future and who, maybe could be more expendable in a different type of deal. Yeah. So, I could see them trading for Drummond to keep him as a pure rental. I mean, it really depends on how much they have to give up.
Right.
What do you think when you look at out West? Because, the Lakers without AD are a pretty ordinary team, but that's to be expected. The Clippers, when George and Kawhi have played, have been really good, but that's been a little bit hit or miss. And then Utah looked unbeatable. Now they've lost 3 of 4. What do you think about what's going on out here?
Still the Lakers. I'm not losing any sleep on this. Shout outs to Utah and what they're doing over there. I didn't love what Mitchell was, blabbering about. I understand it. I understand. No, I'm saying I understand that it was a couple calls that were questionable. The refs have been pretty questionable. But you got to play. You got to win ball games. You guys, it's not like you guys are being robbed and you're like the last team in the league. You're first. You know what I mean? Like, you guys are playing exceptional basketball. You guys are sharing the ball. You guys enjoy playing basketball with each other. Just ride it out. Take the L. One thing I do love about Kawhi Leonard, whether a foul, a hiccup, doesn't say anything. Just gets back, because you can't get that play back anyway. You complaining about the refs doesn't fix it the next night. So, I mean, I don't expect the Jazz to win it all, but I am very impressed at how they're rolling. The Clippers, I don't expect them to.
Real quick, hold on. Like, we'll get. I don't mean to cut you off, but like the Jazz thing, it's a little unsettling, I think, when a team gets that unraveled by officiating at the end. Like, they really got unglued. I will give Donovan Mitchell respect for when he knocks over the Gatorade canister and hits the security guard. He did stop to make sure the guy was okay. So it's like, which I thought was cool. I was like, that's nice.
He's a nice kid. I mean,
absolutely.
He's an all-star.
Yeah.
He's one of the young superstars of this league. But at the end of the day, nah.
Yeah.
No,
and he missed a bunch of shots in a row. They really got unglued there. And it's probably good that it happened in game 30, whatever, as opposed to game 60, whatever. But you got to fix that before you get to the playoffs, because if you're that fragile, that could be a problem.
I mean, it all goes back to act like you've been there before. The Jazz is a storied franchise. They've been in the playoffs for consecutive seasons. You know what I mean? Most of my life, they've been in the playoffs. You know what I mean? Thanks to John Stockton and crew. And then you also look at the Deron Williams years, and now with Spider Mitchell. They haven't missed many times in the postseason. Getting over that great hump, there's teams like the Lakers. It's only 10 teams that win in the past 30 years that actually get to taste the champagne. So
it's funny you say that, like, specifically when you're talking about the Jazz, because like those Stockton Malone Jazz had the absolute worst luck of timing. Like when you look at not just the fact that they didn't win, but the teams that actually won during the era of Stockton and Malone, like, it wasn't just Jordan's Bulls. Like, they dealt with the Showtime Lakers. They dealt with Elijah Wan's Rockets. They dealt with the Bad Boy Pistons, the Spurs. Like, they went through this cycle. Then the Kobe Shaq three-peat team. Like, they went through this period that had teams that weren't just good enough to win championships. Like, they were good enough to repeat, to occasionally three-peat. Like, if the Jazz had played, if that era of Jazz had played 20 years earlier, 10 years earlier, or 10 years later, they likely would have had at least one championship.
Yeah, I mean,
they were so consistently good. But the timing right now for this current incarnation of the Jazz, like, I agree, they're a legitimately good team. They also, though, I think could have issues matching up with either the Lakers or the Clippers. Maybe like the only two teams in the league better than them, but they happen to be better than them at this one moment in time.
It's very Rockets. It's very Rockets, Harden, Chris Paul, D'Antoni, when it's like, okay, you're a good team, but the Warriors are the greatest team ever assembled.
Yeah. I mean, some teams it's just that got your number. They just got your number. You know what I mean? Like I said, I hate backhanded compliments, and I feel like I always do that to the Jazz. But I'm just being realistic, man. I made a big fuss and hootenanny over Gobert's $200 million, and fans just wanted to stick it to me. But
did you go full? You went full hootenanny on that?
I went full hootenanny. But in the situation, like, I'm just being a realist, man. I want more for the Jazz fans, but also people are like, Jazz fans don't need to have more. They've been to the playoffs. There's teams that haven't been to the playoffs in a very long time. So yeah, I just think that they should try to worry about winning a championship one year of their lifetime. You know what I mean? Not just saying, hey, we were a pretty good team that year and we could have did it, because that display from Gobert last night, and it's crazy because they're running a special about him. And, like I said, I'm efficient numbers wise, analytically on the floor, what he does, defensive player of the year, first team all defense. Don't take that away from him. Does he deserve a $200 million contract? Absolutely, yes. If I was the GM and I had to pay it, absolutely not. You know what I'm saying? Because they need more. They need more. Spider and him is not going to do it. Mike Conley, that's the hoot nanny. You know, like it just ain't happening. You know what I'm saying? And if I was a Jazz fan, I would be irate. I don't want to just die on the hill of Rudy Gobert's $200 million. Hang that rafter up. You know how the Knicks fans always, we won 500, we're over 500. Put Rudy Gobert's $200 million contract up.
But then what do you do though? You know what I mean? Because like there are only so many players that can impact a game, like really on a few different levels. And I think Gobert is one of them. Even if he's not somebody that you can necessarily build around as a championship piece by himself. Like there are certain things Gobert does that are really valuable.
Well,
and
he actually wants to be there too.
Right. And if you're not going to spend it on him, like you're going to be spending it on somebody. And then the flip side is if you get too picky about who you spend it on, then you never spend it on anybody. So like it gets to this weird place where, and I'm not saying that this is the way you were approaching it, but like a lot of times people look at this as total championship or bust. And the reality is like only one team gets to win. But I think a lot of times it's about how good of a place are you putting yourself in to actually try to win. And, you know, I mean, you can look at it as, are you doing this well? And sometimes things don't break your way. Are you spending your money stupid? We were talking about the Knicks before. The Knicks used to spend their money incredibly.
Right, the Lakers tried really hard to spend their money stupid, and they just couldn't. Nobody would take their money.
Bust and Utah Jazz has never came out of my mouth ever. Like I don't see it in my own two eyes right now. Currently, like I said, roster is very put together. Guys like to play. The chemistry is championship wise.
Yeah, which is ironic considering where they were.
They have championship chemistry, but they do not have a LeBron James. They do not have an Anthony Davis. They do not have a Kawhi Leonard, and they do not have a Paul George.
Those are the facts. We were talking about this last night with Zach Cram from The Ringer, and this is what I think is fascinating about basketball is that like there are a lot of different ways to be a superstar now. Like Nikola Jokic is just crushing people, and looks obviously in any number of ways different than LeBron. Like he's just different kind of player, different all this stuff. And theoretically, there are all these different ways to win it, but ultimately, it's like, do you have one of those 2, 3, or 4 or 5 guys, or do you have 2 of them, or do you have 3 of them? Like if Paul George plays like the top 5 or 6 guy that he's done in stretches of his career, if you assume Kawhi is going to be Kawhi, then yeah, damn right the Clippers can win. You know, AD with LeBron, like hard to do better than that. Donovan Mitchell's got to elevate in a big way. Jokic has got to be like a top 2 or 3 guy. And then Jamal Murray's got to jump into like, you know, play like a top 10 guy for a month. And then Porter Jr. has got to make it. Like all these other teams, you know, the Eastern Conference is going to look at those 3 guys in Brooklyn and be like, what the fuck do we do with that?
Yeah. Here's the thing. We use the superstar word too loosely. It's only like 4 of those dudes. Mm-hmm. It's only 4 of those dudes. The rest are all-stars, respectively. You're a consecutive all-star. You're not a superstar. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Because I consider superstars guys like Kevin Durant, Steph Curry, LeBron James, franchise-changing guys that no matter what, just surround me with a decent team. It didn't have to be the greatest team, a decent team. Steph with Klay Thompson and Draymond, we're not having this conversation about the Jazz.
Right.
LeBron and AD and maybe KCP as a third guy shooting the ball extremely well, we're not having this conversation. Kawhi, PG, and maybe the Morris twins shooting the ball well, we're not having this conversation about the Jazz. No, every team doesn't have a superstar. We have all-stars and we have superstars. The difference between the golden era of the 90s, because when you look at it, it's the superstars. Those guys were really leading their teams to championships. Isaiah Thomas, Michael Jordan. You know what I mean? Like,
and there was generally only one of them for every team.
And only one of them for every team. Now we have the heavy load, and you can applaud smart market guys, right? Giannis, I do feel, has superstar power, 2-time MVP, can raise his game a little bit more, but doesn't have enough to win an entire series and put it on the back and say, all right, if Bud drew up a play for Giannis, he's not going to win the game.
Okay, here's an interesting question then. Where would you put somebody like Damian Lillard? Because I feel like he's proven that he's done.
He's there. He's there. He's on. He's on the line because he can win a game. He's also a player that could go in and win a 3-point contest. He can go in and win an All-Star MVP. He can go in and win a skills competition. He can go in. I don't know about dunk contests. He is very athletic, but I don't know if he could ever do that. But just the versatility. He's a leader.
Right.
We've
seen him literally close out series.
But his team has never been made up for him to succeed.
That's what I'm asking about. Just because,
and that's no shot at CJ McCollum.
But I feel like but like some of it, I don't know. Some of this is gut and eye test and all the stupid shit that we pull out because we like a guy or don't like a guy. Yeah. I feel like if you drop Dame in one of those situations with the right team and said, okay, go win. Like, we got you the supporting cast, go win. He'd do it. He could he's that kind of guy.
He'll get it done for sure.
Whereas Donovan Mitchell, I need to see that first.
It's night and day. It's night and day.
Jokic, I need to see. I love Nikola Jokic.
Night and day. They're not on Dame's level. Dame's in that conversation. The thing is, Dame's only fault is he's too loyal. You know what I mean? He's never going to leave Portland unless Portland trades him. And if Portland trades him, he's going to fill away because he's committed.
And that actually, I think, like Damian Lillard is like the only player of his profile in the league that nobody ever gives shit about having never won a championship. Like that never comes up with Damian Lillard. And I think it's because everybody recognizes he maxes out every single playoff series. He maxes out in big moments. Like, you can proverbially always do a little more. But if you're looking at this realistically, even by superstar standards, there really is not much more Damian Lillard can do. He's clearly fearless when he's out there. He wants that type of responsibility. And like you said, Travonne, he's loyal.
Loyalty's overrated in NBA.
Sure.
But what is your principles and what defines your career? What defines your career? How do you view it? Do you want to be a champion or do you just want to say, hey, I left it all out on the floor? And I think in Dame's situation, yes, he would like to be a champion. But if he didn't, would it make or break his career? Absolutely not. No. Would a fan or, fans throw that off? Absolutely not. Is somebody going to say he's washed? Absolutely not. You got commentators daily. You got, talking heads saying, oh, get Damian Lillard out of Portland. No, for what? He wants to be there. I mean, we should stop with the rumors. We should stop with all that other situation. I don't know what they possibly could do to make that team get over the hump. I know Nick Jones, my buddy, always lobbies for Draymond Green to be in Portland. Yeah. I think with the ideal fit to get toughness there and a point forward. But realistically, I don't see anybody going to Portland to go play. And I think we're just going to say, hey, he was one of those dudes that played 20 years with his team, gave it his all, and a future Hall of Famer, respectively.
Yeah. It's just cool, though. I mean, that's part of it. Yeah. Love Dame.
Lovable.
Yeah. That respect. It's really rare to have that type of, to basically be immune to those sort of count the rings criticisms that basically is NBA culture right now. Mm-hmm. Right? I don't like that that's how it is, but I know
it should have never existed from the jump.
Yeah. Who was the third best player in the Lakers last year? Because you can talk about that's a great way of quantifying.
KCP.
Okay,
I would say KCP in the bubble.
Yeah,
when it came down to the bubble, because it was super inconsistent. He had to find. I don't know what switch he flipped. Maybe he locked in as soon as he got in the bubble, but he was a different player.
So, I don't mean this, but it kind of, I think, reinforces the point that you're making, Travonne, is that how many teams have won championships where the third best player is Kentavious Caldwell-Pope? Like the level of player that's KCP.
Not many.
It tells you how good LeBron and AD are.
I could see, and this defeats my point. I know everybody's saying Brooklyn should go trade for a fourth. It's impossible because they would have to part with one of the big three. But they have internal growth. Bruce Brown, Nick Claxton.
Yeah.
Those dudes are having KCP type visibility where you're like, where the hell did these guys come from?
Well, it's because you've seen the tape breakdowns. Like people, like literally nobody looks at Bruce Brown. Like he could, if they were all carrying wallets, he could steal them from everybody's pockets because nobody's
6'4" center, eats with his hands, does what he needs to do, can pass, can defend 1 through 5, can handle the ball, can finish at the hole, has been scoring 20 plus points quietly. And then
because nobody, and so the gravity that those guys have, just the attention that they face. Like I the last week or two, and they were doing it without KD, and I actually think all of it, defensively included, you need to see everyone together before you can decide whether it's going to work. They're playing good enough defense right now to where, oh yeah, that's a real thing. And that offense with KD, letting Harden just rack up 16 assists a game, and Kyrie goes for 25 and 5 or whatever, and makes 4 or 5 3-pointers. Like the level of defense, which everybody's worried about, to me looks good enough to go win.
If they can flip Dinwiddie for Tucker, hey, I like it, because now they even get smaller, they get stronger, they can guard all around, because it's starting to get contagious. Kyrie's been making effort to play.
You guys talk for a second. I'll be right back.
Yep. Guys are showing like they really want to win this thing. DeAndre Jordan looks like flashes of his old self.
Well, it's interesting when you see guys, like, whether they're coming off a championship year and they taste what that success feels like, or if you just mentioned like DeAndre Jordan looking reinvigorated, or Harden being in this opportunity for like the first time, when guys really recognize what's in front of them, like, what this season with the Clippers. And I think maybe even to some extent the Jazz too, just because they had that very open drama between Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert. But the Clippers, all the talk about their tension last year, and both of those teams, by multiple accounts, had these like come to Jesus conversations where everybody just laid everything out. And I think both those teams, but especially the Clippers, recognized, like, man, we wasted something. Like, we wasted a real opportunity. And you don't get that many of them. And, like, when you really can look at yourself in the mirror and be like, no, we're good. Like, there aren't a lot of teams. And, we've all been around teams. They'll all talk about how good they are and that they believe in themselves. You can tell when they're lying. Because I've watched teams talk about how they still believe in themselves. They're in a playoff series. They're going to get waxed, and they still talk themselves up. And you're like, everybody here is lying. When you can actually look yourself in the mirror and say, we're good. And I think that's what's happening right now with Brooklyn. And I say this as somebody who's been very openly skeptical about, them being able to put defensive pieces together. I think they are starting to recognize what's actually in front of them. And Travonne, it's motivating themselves to bring the best out of each other.
Yeah, absolutely. Jeff Green, Kyrie Irving, stepping in, leadership, just making sure guys are accountable. And that's the good thing, guys like Joey Bucket shooting lights out, TLC, Shamit starting to find their way. Confidence is growing. I mean, you can look down the line. I mean, I'm not going to just say like, oh, this is just the greatest team assembled. They still have a lot to prove, but they're looking very scary. But I won't give them too much credit, because what Philly's doing over there is.
I was about to say, in Philly, you're going to make up a team that is kind of designed to fight that. You have a great, incredibly versatile perimeter defender with Ben Simmons, who can guard any of those guys, and Embiid, who changes everything near the paint. So that's going to be a thing. And then I still think it's too early. Like, you got to. Milwaukee was pretty good while Holiday was playing, and then Holiday left. He was with the COVID. Missed, what was it, like 10 or 11 games with COVID. Yeah. And he's back now, but not really back yet. Like, they were pretty good. Their point differential when Holiday was healthy, they were beating up everyone. So, he's a guy who can defend, certainly can defend Harden. He can certainly defend Kyrie, and Giannis can defend. I don't think it's a given that they can get out. I just wonder if those teams can score enough to compete with Brooklyn if Brooklyn's rolling.
I think it's a trade-off. I mean, you put Simmons on KD, you put Well, no, you put Simmons on Kyrie or Harden. You put Matisse on Kyrie or whoever it may be. They can interchange. You're going to give up. You're going to give up points with KD. He's going to get what he's going to get, and vice versa. You're going to give up points from Embiid, and I think it's just a heavyweight fight. You know what I mean? The only thing, you got perimeter shooting on a trade-off and the Spider-Man meme of Steph Curry and Joe Harris. And then, you just kind of pick your poison, and I think it's going to be all-out gunfight. But, that's a fun series to look forward to, but not to count out the Milwaukees because they've been here before. Not to count out, who else is in the Miami Heat? Like those teams.
If they can get it together.
I think they do, though. I think they do. If they bring in a DeMarcus Cousins, who's just kind of chilling at the crib right now. You know what I mean? Like, they don't have to grab much. They don't have to grab much.
I don't think DeMarcus helps them.
I mean,
I love
listen,
Boogie.
if Myers Leonard,
I want Boogie to succeed
if Myers
as
Leonard
much
could,
as
if
anyone.
Myers Leonard could get on the floor, Boogie can get on the floor.
Yeah, but Myers Leonard wasn't getting on the floor. But I remember, like in the playoffs,
I get it.
He played last year.
I get it, but I'm
Not
just
during
saying,
the playoffs.
he doesn't have to play. He doesn't have to play much, but just a body. I think he can give some stuff. But overall, that's just me on my Boogie love and hoping that he gets another shot. Doesn't mean that he's going there. Doesn't mean that I'm lobbying for him to get there. But I would like to see him there because that's a realistic destination. It's not anything of throwing out a loose team like, oh, he'll go to Brooklyn. No, because, or he'll go back to the Lakers. No, because the Lakers are interested in Hassan Whiteside, and then also the Lakers are interested in Blake Griffin. So,
God, that's both of those guys. I mean, I look, you put. I mean, I get the appeal.
Like I said, they're not at the best, skillful. But it's just emergency break glass until AD.
I feel like if there is a defensive structure and a team and a coach that can turn Hassan Whiteside into a winning player or a winning enough player, it's Frank Vogel. But
with LeBron, with AD,
with LeBron, with AD, like you say, break glass in case of emergency. Very special set of skills. Taken style. But God,
as cringe as it is, I'm taking Trez over Blake right now. So I get it.
Oh yeah.
Well, it's interesting because I've thought Blake could be an interesting addition to the Lakers, but I don't see him functioning like Trez. And I agree with you on balance. Trez is going to be a much more.
It would be a petty signing, right? On paper, you're like, oh my God, the Lakers got Blake Griffin.
Well, I'm here for pettiness. I love me some pettiness.
You say, oh, they got Blake Griffin.
Fans love that
because it'll be like sticking it to Ballmer, and we got him for cheap, and let's just give him a shot. But then Laker fans are really heel turn if he's playing really bad. Get him off our team.
Well, I mean, that stuff can always turn on time. Like the pettiness works both ways. It is a two-way petty street. The way I picture Blake Griffin potentially working with the Lakers is just like a wheel greaser for that second unit, like somebody that
he's a 5-inch shorter version of Gasol with a different defensive profile, a different output. Like the basic skill set, can step out and hit 3-pointers. Excellent passer, respect the jump shot, all that kind of stuff. Skillful offensive player. He functions like Gasol. So like you would use Trez, I guess, if you wanted the inside stuff. You would use Griffin in a lineup where you didn't want a true center on the floor. But he and Marc Gasol, to me, at this point in their careers, kind of serve the same function offensively.
Yeah, I mean, hey, my buddy Baron Davis said he still believes in Blake. I'm going to try to still believe in Blake. I'm not here to write off careers. Maybe he proves us all wrong, and I'm riding for him. So wherever he does end up, I wish him the best.
Did you see that Barron said too that the Kia back in the day tried to pay him with a car and not money?
Yeah, it was excellent backstory, man. I love when NBA guys let us in the door.
It explained actually why he poked his head out of the sunroof.
That's
I always thought that he did it just because
for a part of the dunk, right?
Right. Well, I mean that pass actually I've always thought was an underrated degree of difficulty. Like the idea of you try to throw a lob pass from the constriction of a sunroof, like you don't have full extension of your arm, like that sort of thing. Like I've always thought that was more difficult than it appeared. But now you're just learning like, no, this was Barron putting Kia in a place like everybody sees me.
Yeah.
Like I am a part of this, whether you like it or not. Good for Baron.
Surprise! It's I, Baron Davis.
That's part of. Hey, I'm outsmarting you.
It's a very Baron Davis way of resolving that situation. I mean that with a lot of respect.
One of the brightest minds right now, man.
Yes,
Baron.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
We like
entrepreneur, man.
Yeah.
How do you? I don't know how deep you are into like sneaker stuff and whatever. Can he make Reebok work? Because I know that's a goal.
I know that was a conversation that that happened. I mean, I think Baron would be better off telling you guys.
Yeah.
I'm not really in the room with that. I know it was a conversation, and I know he's been excited about it. But Baron has his hands in so much, man. Like right now, he's just talking about. He just got in with NFTs, so who knows what he got going overall. But I definitely would love for him to do it. You know what I mean? He was actually he had a signature shoe with them before, and he has a history, and I'm sure he has a group that could put some money up. And like I said, sky's the limit, and I do believe that guy can do anything.
Yeah, he's a really creative guy. I agree with you that like whatever space he decides to get into, I think it's going to work really well.
Yeah.
And again, just congrats retroactively on bending Kia to your knee.
Because
I love that car. I mean, that was I think it was an Optima. It's a nice car.
Yeah, it's Optima.
Car. Probably wanted the ability to, you pay me in money. If I want a car, I'll go buy one. I don't need you to give me one.
Yeah.
Want to ask you about All-Star Weekend, because I don't think there's ever been an All-Star game coming up where, the players want to be there less. The vast majority of players seem to have zero interest. The NBA, though, is trying, I think, really hard to lean into some very honorable social justice issues, highlighting historically Black colleges and universities, really pushing that. The referee crew they announced today, 3 graduates, I believe, of HBCUs, and a lot of they're emphasizing Black designers. But do you have any sense that makes a difference to the players in terms of whether or not they're
the perception of the event?
No.
The perception of the event.
No one's overly excited. It's empty gestures. It's been like that for the past 2 years. We all know that it's all about money. And the players also are playing so they don't get fined and obviously get rewarded handsomely at the end of their contract talks and in their contract bonuses. So respectively, they're going to still do it, even though they're not happy about it. Most guys haven't had a break and was looking forward to planning a vacation time with their families. For other guys that didn't make the game, they can't leave out the state, and then they're going to get back to playing immediately. So this ideally isn't working in anybody's favor. Nobody's outsmarting anybody. And as far as having 3 refs that, are former HBCU graduates, kudos to that, in their family, it's honorable, and a great gesture for them to work that game. The layout is very clunky, activities during halftime, activities before the game, all on one night. It's just really, it reminds me of like the basketball version of Coachella. I don't know if I need a wristband to sit on my couch or what, but like I said, this is, you're going into like a heavily Black populated community in Atlanta that's been wide open for a while and hasn't really been taking COVID really serious. I think it defeats the purpose. And I think if they really wanted to, give back to Black communities and HBCUs, they could have just paid with their pockets and just kind of
always got the check. Yeah.
How they did the rookie world game and said, hey, we're just honoring these people. We picked it. And now we're moving on.
Yeah. I mean, look, we have collectively, societally, we have a 15-second attention span. So this may all end up forgotten. And, the beat goes on. This season has been just a slog towards the finish line on a lot of different counts. But I do wonder if, in terms of just the perception that the NBA wants to build up through this, if they're actually overplaying their hand, like, if it's sort of like a few gestures too many, like in the sense of looking like they're trying too hard. Like, there's a lot.
They're already there. They're already there as far as looking if they're trying too hard. But again, it's COVID. We're stuck at home. We're going to watch regardless if we complain or not. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Like, it doesn't matter what people have to say. It's like being canceled. It only lives on the internet. In the real life, it still goes on. So in those scenarios, the All-Star game is going to happen. no matter what LeBron said during that time, he's going to play in the game. He's going to pick his team. We're still going to see him play on Sunday.
He did. That's actually been done while we were talking. He drafted
So,
first, and he took Giannis.
That's a good pick. So in those situations, you look at it like, although guys aren't happy, the check still clears on the 1st and 15th, and so be it. You know what I mean? Like, this is the way it is. And for the NBA, it's business as usual. They're going to rub their hands and say, hey, we did a good job. We outshined the NFL. Leave us alone.
Yeah, by the way,
LeBron, by the way, went real big with his team. Like, this is no small ball lineup here. It's LeBron, Giannis, Luka, Jokic, and Steph. So it's like LeBron is the second shortest guy on the team.
That's fair.
That is a big lineup. I would love to see how that works in like real basketball over the course of the season.
Good passing lineup.
Well, this is year 18. He doesn't have to shoot. He got bigs that he can throw lobs to, and he got a shooter.
That, you know what that also feels like from LeBron's perspective? A starting 5 where he does not have to do jack shit.
Exactly.
Which is he wants from this All-Star weekend.
Exactly. In the great words of Mark Phillips' Supreme Dreams, I'm 36.
Yes. I mean, these are 4 guys that he can give the ball to. They can do pretty much everything. They can play make, they can score. And it's like, you know what? I'm going to be in the back, cherry picking a lot. Like, he's just going to be in the back, just chilling.
Absolutely.
Not going to be doing a thing.
The last question on this, because we want to talk to you about the podcast stuff as well. Like, do you feel like, because my big question about All-Star is both how someone in 6 months can write a story about the dynamics, that why the players union agreed to do it in the way they did without fighting about it, whatever. And Chris Paul kind of has hinted at it. It's like, hey guys, the union and the rest of these non-stars, the revenue matters to them. And that's part of why we're doing this. But the flip side is whether it's, you want to be kind of, if you have maybe a jaundiced eye about it and you look at it and you think it almost feels a little bit, I don't know, exploitative, or you'd be like, look, if you don't support this game, look at all the black designers we're supporting and the black causes and all these other things, extortionist, whatever you want to say. I wonder how much impact this has, because they've had a lot of hard conversations they're going to have around revenue because of everything that's going on with COVID. Do you see any fallout there?
No.
Okay.
I mean, at this point, no. I just, like I said, players want to get paid and they understand how they get paid. That's it. No pushback. Yeah. Fans is going to, make a scoff the same way Jay-Z just, sold his shares of Tidal and got a seat at Square. People aren't going to complain about everything. Life goes on. You know what I mean? Empty gestures. So empty gestures at this point.
There will be no hootenanny over this.
Well, I tweak what you said just a little bit, Travonne. I think people are going to complain. Life goes on. Like, because we are for all the talk about cancel culture, I think what we really are is a complain culture. Yeah. But as you said before, canceling doesn't really happen that often, in part because we just move on. Like, we move on too quickly for, I think, like,
I can get canceled tomorrow, and if I just tweet through it, guess what? That's the cheat code. Seriously, let a week or two go by and somebody's going to outshine my dirt.
That is a brilliant way of assessing it, but
that's a t-shirt.
It sucks, but that's just life. You know what I mean?
You should get that printed.
And the bigger your platform is, the more people want to take you down. We all have skeletons, but
just tweet through it.
Yeah, just tweet through it. I mean, no, I didn't make that. So I can't. I think it was Nerd at the Cool Table. Shout out to Nerd at the Cool Table on Twitter.
Okay,
he has some gems, but I mean, Black Twitter creates a lot of stuff that doesn't get a lot of credit for. So I can't take credit for that. But yeah,
it gets ripped off by all the white people on Twitter.
That just seems weird. Black people doing things that they don't get credit for? That seems out of character.
I mean, look, man, in general, man, once you hit send on Twitter, a lot of stuff, companies look at it and just ripping it. You can't get mad.
It is there for public co-opting, to be fair.
Well, you can NFT your tweets now, so there you go.
Okay, that's true. I don't think anybody's going to pay for mine.
Want to talk to you a little bit about the podcasts, because the BOMM podcast, Black Opinions, on Count the Dings Network, you've got a really interesting one where you kind of bring people on to talk to them specifically kind of about their backgrounds, where they came from, how they got to where they are, the growing up series. A couple things about that. First of all, like where did that kind of the genesis that come from, but also too, how do you decide who you're interested in having come on? Because you've got a really wide variety of guys. So you're Roy Bellamy from the Levitard show, Trey Kirby, people basketball fans might know, but also Bitcoin Zay, like teaching everybody about Bitcoin and all that. Like what kinds of things are you interested in when you think of the people to put on that show?
I'm interested in people in general. I always can't not stop learning. You know what I mean? I'm going to be learning from kids. I'm going to be learning from a 98-year-old. You know what I mean? I don't know it all. I'll shut up when people talk. And in this particular situation, I think during, this idea came about 2 years ago. But I had parked it for a little bit just to, figure out the long-term plan on it, if I was committed to it or not. And, my co-host Jason Madison does an amazing job with the 1 and the 2. He challenges our guests every time and does some good research. But the concept of it mainly was just, trying to show relatability. Most people get into the idolization of worship culture of celebrities or people with a large following. And I wanted to bring my guests down to earth and say, hey, when we get up, I open my eyes just like you. When I get out of bed, I put my shoes and socks on just like you. I get dressed just like you. And when I walk out the door, I'm just like you. And the relatability of like, we all grew up the same. No matter how we turned out as adults, we all started the same. So when you say, oh, I like that cereal when I grew up, or me and my brother did that at the same time, like that was the relatability. And then also offering that advice to their 18-year-old self at the end of the show. So for my younger listeners and for my listeners that are transitioning into life or trying to figure things out, do know at that particular time, these advice is for you and to help you, you know what I mean? And help myself. I'm learning so much from so many people and made friendships from having them as guests. So, as far as, and to answer your last question, as far as picking the guests, I don't have a specific guest. It's not like, oh, you got to be super famous or you got to be popular. You know what I mean? Like the idea was to originally have 10 celebrities and then just start picking random followers. Mm-hmm. But then I was like, I got 20,000 followers, dude. I don't know how I'm going to just blindly select and say, hey, you're going to be a guest today. Because for one, everyone's not comfortable doing podcasts. Everyone is not good at public speaking. And no one likes to be put on the spot. It's like saying popcorn reading, where you say, you read, Brian, you read. And you're like,
cool.
Because people criticize people podcasts or content all the time, but couldn't do this.
Right.
It's tough.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you mentioned Roy, for example. I mean, just from, being a Levitard fan, I've learned about, all the, as they put it, characters on the show. And, Roy's backstory is somebody that didn't begin in broadcast journalism. And by his own admission, he's still not totally comfortable on the mic end, speaking a lot, on Levitard and stuff. So it was just interesting hearing him on your show because just there's a mystery about him. But I think it also it speaks to just what you have to do as an interviewer in situations like this, and just everybody isn't going to be the same, in terms of an interview subject and how you look to hear from them, how you look to learn from them. There's everybody just there's a lot of different things that make us tick, even though, like you said, there's certainly commonalities in all the guests that you've had.
Yeah, I mean, it's the micromanaging. Don't put anybody out of their comfort zone. Talk about stuff that makes them happy, a bright spot. Most of my guests smile. I mean, I haven't really released any video. Jason has it in a vault. Sometimes we're just should we put it out? Do people care about it? But for the most part, when we're recording, people are really enjoying themselves. They're reflecting on good times. Sometimes we had serious conversations. Sometimes I open up the vault and talk about share some personal experiences about myself. So, like I said, it's a fun opportunity to do it. Hopefully I'll land more guests, people that are open to reaching out and want to be a guest, or people that's, doing the hockey assist and introducing me to people. And I think that's how it kind of normally goes. It's a friend of a friend that says, hey, I think they would be perfect for this show. Or, hey, I would love to hear about this person. And sometimes I'm publicly just calling them out like, hey, I would love to have you on the show. And, I'm not that person to be ashamed or, admit that I'm a fan. I like to give people their flowers. And, I joked around during the bubble when we got JJ Redick to do a shotgun of beer. And I kindly asked him, did he want to come on my pod? And he did. I mean, he didn't have to. And he did that. So, I mean, I'm grateful for anyone that comes on and takes their time out to record a podcast with me and Jason.
That's how we feel about this thing. It's like, especially, people like, we didn't even realize Zach last night lives in Chicago. And we're like, he's like, oh yeah, I'm on Midwest time. And we're like, oh crap, I'm sorry. So,
I mean, who would want to record with you guys, man?
Yeah. Appreciate it, man.
Always a fun time.
I wanted to actually ask you about the podcast, the bomb that dropped today with Naima Cochran and John Gervais and you guys are talking about the ABC series, The Soul of a Nation. And there was an interesting contention I thought that Naima made about the show, which is about the Black experience in America. And she said that it isn't for us being Black people. She said that in a lot of ways, it's a show for white people to see, hopefully better understand that Black experience, hopefully, try to be more helpful in making that Black experience better. Just like I said, understanding it more. And what I thought was interesting about that is the idea of just Black content, for lack of a better way of putting it, sometimes existing for that purpose for people other than Black people. And like, how prevalent do you think that is? Is it disheartening? Like at times, like the idea that, shows or movies could be like almost reverse homework, you know what I mean? Like, or potentially ignored homework, as opposed to something really for the entire audience that's making it. Like, it's interesting. It was interesting to hear that on the heels of the conversation we just had with Dave Schilling, who was involved with that Black Renaissance video for YouTube. And that contention of hers really stuck out to me.
First of all, shout out to Naima Cochran. She's one of the smartest people I know. Very knowledgeable in the music industry and just well-rounded and highly educated. Just love hearing her talk. Yeah, she's absolutely right. Because when you think about when we go to school, right? Every race, everybody go to school in the United States. We're taught all these histories of everything. When you think about Black history, when you think about the way we were treated, the way life has been, they omit it or it's briefly breezed over 2 pages, if that. Or you see people that graduate or the actual state history of what's going on and say, oh, I never learned about that. So last May, America's eyes were open. You had white guilt. You had people apologizing. You had people saying, oh, I never was taught that, or I'm so sorry, and apologizing, and are you okay? And parents checking out. Well, these things that have been released, and these things, it shouldn't fall on the weight of Black people. For one, I shouldn't have to teach you about my history. I shouldn't teach you about things that's going on. I shouldn't teach you about what it feels like to be me or be mistreated by, law enforcement, or having the fear of seeing those lights and you never did anything and you're not knowing if you're going to make it home. So when you get something like Soul of a Nation, or people sharing, being vulnerable, for one, in front of millions and millions of people experiencing the first time they realized they were Black, or the first time that they were just trying to do their job and, was basically verbally abused by slander or a bigotry word, in those situations. So overall, yes, this content is for other races. When you look at it, to say, this is how we feel, this is how we relay it, the same way as hip hop, the same as movies, in this direction, to show how we really feel. It's the expression, because that's it. That's all we have. And I think that's the only way to grasp attention, because if I went outside and I got arrested, people would mind their business and say, oh, he must have did something, not versus the color of my skin. So with programs like Soul of a Nation, I mean, you can go down the line: books, music, podcasts, poetry slam, all that stuff, Instagram lives. People are constantly putting out content. Buy Black shouldn't be a thing, but it is. You know what I mean? Black History Year shouldn't be a thing, but it is. You have to promote these things or they're going to get pushed away to the side. So with content, it's not for us because we already know. We know, we live it. This is our lives being documented. It's for other people to say, wake up, open your eyes, and do you care? If you don't care, fine. I'd rather you lie to me and say, you know what, I don't care, versus telling me something and putting a black Instagram square up.
Does it feel like it's being heard more?
No. No, I don't feel anything. I mean, it's cool. It's cool. I mean, the thing about being black in America is that we have hope. We always had hope. Because if it happens to one person, you think, go that right path and it might happen to you too. So if one person gets reparations, like in that show, then it's like, all right, let's follow. We have the blueprint now.
Right.
If one person survives and has immunity to never get killed by a police officer, then we're going to follow that path. We have no ideal model to how to survive in America. It sucks. But also, it's not just about us. I can't highlight that. Stop Asian hate. It's a lot of stuff going on in America right now. It's disgusting. So as much as, you know, I can make it about black people, I can make it about Asian people, I can make it about, you know, the poor, the people that don't have water in Mississippi and Texas and frozen pipes and people not having jobs and rent control. And it's just the world overall. You know what I mean? It's disgusting, but whatever you're using your platform for to get the message out, I just want people to wake up, you know, and all I can tell you is to drink water.
I was going to ask you about that, by the way, because you've been doing the daily message of drink water for, I mean, it began before the pandemic. I mean, this has been going on a few years.
It's years.
Do you hear from people that hydration is going up? Like, do you feel like you're making a difference in the hydration movement?
I don't know if I'm making a difference or not. I mean, I'm grateful for the messages of people saying thanks for the reminder. You know, it's been great, you know, seeing feedback, but like, I mean, I'm not, you know, it's honestly a personal reminder. That's how it all started. I used to drink so much root beer soda and like eat so much candy. And like, I went to the doctor one time and he was like, dude, you don't drink enough water. And I had to like really tell myself like, you drink water today? And it just kind of made a thing. And, you know, I started tweeting it so I can see it with my own eyes. It's just kind of like taking a note and then telling myself to go drink water at that particular time. And then people started to catch on and things of that nature. And again, I don't own water. I don't own a brand. You know what I mean? Like I genuinely care about people. I would hope that people are making a better, you know, life choice. But yeah, I mean, it's a thing.
Representative of big water.
Yeah.
I don't know what this Travonne bottled water though that I've been drinking like the last year or so is. I gotta find it.
Really refreshing.
Kidding.
Hey, if any water brand wants to reach out and collab with me, I'm always welcome, man. Right now, you know, to keep it eco-friendly, I've been using the Brita filter.
There you go.
But Flow water is pretty good, I heard. If Flow wants to plug me
out, you take a nice room temperature bottle of water with you to your smart bed at night, and that's how you turn down. I got you.
Yeah, I don't bring any water in the bedroom, but I will say that I keep a gallon. I will. I think that's the annoying thing about being in New York now is that I have to be very mindful of my water intake. So mostly I might go very light during the day if I have to travel, you know, on the train or whatever. But if I'm at home, yeah, I'm just flushing a gallon because I can go to the bathroom. The bathroom's right there. Yeah.
Travonne Edwards, this
really quick before we let you go, I just wanted to give you a chance to let people know about Safe Space Fridays, the group that you lead over Zoom.
Man, I really appreciate this promo. Safe Space Fridays is for Black men struggling with trauma, just a safe space to just, you know, let their you know, their feelings, if they don't feel comfortable talking about things, you know, I'm a vault pretty much. I'm allowing them to, you know, get it out. You know what I mean? Some people don't feel comfortable talking with their spouse, their partner, you know, family. It's too embarrassed, you know what I mean? Because everybody, it's a stereotype and, you know, how we were raised and in our community is that, you know, men have to be tough and boys don't cry. And, toughen up. And I think that's very overrated. You know what I mean? Like, bottled emotions causes even more problems. And, you need to find that safe space. So if you can't afford therapy, my door is always open. Well, my DMs are always open. And then my Zoom door is open. And for an hour or two, we talk about life. Sometimes we don't have trauma. Sometimes we just joke around, and we've created a community there. And I'm grateful to block off that time on my schedule and give my time to whoever may need it at that time, because, we're on borrowed time. And, if my service in life is to do one thing, it's to help others. So, I'm very grateful.
And for people who are listening right now to the podcast, not seeing it, again, Safe Space Fridays, the Zoom code is 382-697-5023. It's at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific time. You can DM Travonne at Travonne, Travonne, for the password. Just, again, wanted to make sure that was out there for people, because I think it's great that you're doing that.
I appreciate it, fellas.
Brian, you're muted. You're
daughter.
Muted. There you go.
We're doing this live. So, earlier my daughter's still awake. Usually she's asleep when we do it live. Yeah. I was just trying to, they're crying. But there's so much we actually didn't get to, even with an hour. So, I know, with all the gigs and all that, your time is valuable. Let us know another time we can get you back, because we love talking to you. It'd be fun to do it again.
Anytime you guys hit me up, dude, I'm always available. I'll make time for you guys.
Be careful.
Thank you. All right, Travonne Edwards, The Athletic, Wieden Kennedy, the BOMM podcast, part of the Count the Dings network, which you are a co-founder, correct?
Yes,
correct. So a lot going on. Again, man, we appreciate the time, and we are really, really happy for your success, man. Thanks.
Thank you.
All right. So Travonne Edwards, awesome stuff. If you get a chance to listen to the podcast, BOMM is what you search on iTunes to find all of it. It's a lot of great stuff. I loved the podcast he did about Bitcoin. It's really, really informative.
The one network's really good.
Yeah, the one today about Soul of a Nation is important. And then the safe spaces thing. If you do know somebody who could use that outlet, pass the word. All right. So tomorrow, Andy, we have Steve Mason. From 710 ESPN. Our friend Steve is going to be coming on the show. He is an old man who cannot stay up until 10 o'clock. So we're going to be talking to him early. We're going to be mocking him relentlessly.
Yeah. It's going to be very exciting. He's going to stay up till probably like 6, maybe 6:15 for us. It really speaks to the friendship that we've built with Mace, that he's willing to he's willing to bleed a little bit into the
he's burning the sunset oil, Andy.
No, it really means a lot to both of us.
Some fun stuff set up for next week. Got comedian Mike Malloy coming up on Monday. A muralist, Robert Vargas. We're going to talk to him about the process of putting up a very brand new Kobe mural. He's been painting murals all over the city, and that's kind of a cool thing. The Lauer After Dark guys are going to come by on Thursday, and some great stuff for the rest of the week there. So we'll see everybody tomorrow. Steve Mason.
Dank je, Nederland.